Welcome to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Although the sudden appearance of this girl is startling on its own, it's what happens earlier that's by far the most baffling. Immediately after arriving to the second floor, its door, for some reason, begins to open and close while staying on the same floor. But even stranger is that a faint voice is heard inside the elevator.
What do y'all think is going on here? This one doesn't make any sense at all unless this is something that they planned. How would some stranger know that they had a phone propped up in the elevator? Why would that stranger then be waiting on the floor on all fours, waiting for the elevator door to open so that they could crawl in quickly and creepily and grab the phone? Even if she wanted to take the phone for some reason, why is she retrieving it like a dog? And the girl's facial expression would imply that she's in on the fun. She kind of looks to me like it's the exact same girl that's on the right of the frame at the beginning of the video. And how would they have gotten the phone back to even post this? I feel like at the very least they're leaving out key details that they know about so that they can make the video appear more unsettling.
So I got called to one of our vacant buildings to help or to instruct Duke about installing the box and whatever. So they say there's a light on in here. So okay, cool. So as you can see, there are no light bulbs in here. No light bulbs or light fixtures in here either. Let me go down to the basement. I don't know if y'all can see this, but all this is water, right? All this is water. So all the dark part that you see right there, between the dark and the light part of the wall, all that's water. As I'm looking, I see, what in the hell? Like somebody is walking barefoot down here. And my black about to be up too, because yeah, I'm not about to get drugged down in this and nope. No sir, not me. I'm not that guy. I don't get paid that much. I'm out. Oh, I forgot to show you the extra creepy thing about that. Hold on. This is what's next door. Yeah. And the footsteps are coming from up under this door right here, leading from the cemetery to the back. Nope. Nope. No. Hell no.
I'm betting there's a simple explanation to this. That building is clearly a commercial property, so anyone who's going in and out of there is probably either a contractor or a business person who's wearing shoes that they need to keep dry for the rest of the day. They're clearly doing renovations on the place, and the guy's already stated that the basement has been and is currently somewhat flooded. I'm betting that a contractor or somebody had to enter that basement to do some work, and they took their shoes off. They probably just didn't want to be walking around for the rest of the day with wet socks and shoes on. Personally, I feel like this guy's being a little ridiculous. It really feels like he's trying to amp up something that's really not that big of a deal. But if he's scared of footprints in a basement, he probably needs to get into a new line of work. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
A man moved into a new apartment alone with his dog, and after living there for a while, strange things began to happen. The house quickly became a nightmare after he started hearing banging sounds and objects moving around the house, and his dog Jackson wouldn't stop barking at certain areas of the house. One day, he noticed Jackson behaving strangely, staring at an open closet in the house non-stop, so he begins to record, hoping to capture proof. After this, he terminated his lease and moved out shortly afterwards. Watch closely.
Jackson is like laser focused on this right now. He won't, like, you alright? I know. I think something's wrong. I don't know. I hear noises, but I'm not even sure. Are you kidding me right now? There is no way that just happened. There is no way that just happened. There is no way.
Something flies straight off from inside the shelf, leaving him shocked in disbelief. Then a few seconds later, his dog turns around and starts barking at another door. When this happens...
What's wrong with you? What's wrong? Jackson. Jackson. What's wrong? There's banging and stuff. What the fuck? Jackson.
Typically, I would point out that the guy didn't show us what was on the inside of that closet, and that he just continues to stand there and do nothing, which would usually indicate to me that the whole video was planned. However, the reaction from this guy seems about as genuine of a reaction as I've ever seen in one of these videos. He's not even acting like he's freaked out, but just shocked at the situation that he appears to find himself in. And I don't think he went in that closet to look around because he was waiting to see if something else was going to happen. I'm not typically impressed with videos of things falling off of a shelf because they're just too easy to fake. But I think this might be probably one of the first videos that I've ever seen like this that doesn't actually come across like it's some intentionally filmed fake ghost video.
Holy, people are losing it. So Pope Francis has been laid in an open casket for people to go and pay their respects. But people are starting to get really worried, and there's a scary reason why. So there is a 900-year-old manuscript, and this is buried deep in the Vatican archives. And this archive has successfully predicted every single pope in 900 years, including this one in our time. However, this is where it gets crazy. There is no pope after Pope Francis. In fact, what it says in the manuscript is after Pope Francis is Judgment Day. It actually indicates that the end of the world would be 2027. So people are starting to think 2027 will be the apocalypse. People are starting to speculate that whoever steps in as the new pope will be the start of the end of the world. I personally don't know how I feel about it, but it's weird. Could 2027 be it?
It seems like any direction you look in nowadays, you see signs of the end times all around you. Personally, I'm not too worried about this. I know I'll be ready when the time comes. Honestly, though, I don't think this is anything to worry about regardless of what your plans are for when you check out of this world. I have never known a man who could tell the future. I have heard the end of the world be predicted so many times throughout my life. End dates that were supposed to happen during my lifetime. and not a single one of them has come true. No man knows the date of the end of the world. I think this is nonsense.
How long do you think it's going to be before they make the announcement that we've had contact with outer space and the Alfred? What?
Never.
You don't think so?
No. I used to think so. I used to think they were getting us prepared, but I have no doubt now that they never intended to, and I fully agree with you. Now, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was going on the lecture, hey, you gotta listen to this, you gotta see what's going on. Now, I know they were right. I mean, mankind is not and will never be ready for this kind of information. Sure, it's interesting for you and me and a very small segment of society, and it's tremendously interesting, but no way should the public ever be told about it.
What do you think would happen if they were?
It would probably cause problems that the governments of the world are not able to handle. The basic issue is religion.
I've heard this statement made over and over again, and I think the implication they're trying to make is that if this information, that this secret information was to get out, that it would upend everybody's religion. I think, for one thing, they're underestimating people's faith. Finding out that aliens messed with our DNA, if that's the big secret, is not going to throw the entire world into an existential crisis and make everybody stop believing in God. It's just going to prove to us, yet again, that there are things in this world that are just beyond our understanding. Personally, and this is a very controversial idea that seems to be picking up a lot of steam online, but there's actually a lot of evidence that would suggest that possibility that we could be living in Satan's little season in the book of Revelations right now, and that's what they're hiding from us. But that's just one idea, and there's 100 of them out there. What do y'all think the big secret is?
My buddy Matt brought this to my attention, something called SFFAS 56. And this rabbit hole is wild. First off, SFFAS 56 stands for the Statement of Federal Financial Accounting Standards 56. And what it does is enable government agencies engaged in national security or intelligence-related activities to withhold, modify, or misrepresent financial information in publicly available federal financial statements. This includes not only keeping expenditures secret, but also potentially altering reported financial data to maintain classified program secrecy. In other words, these guys are keeping two sets of books, which is why none of the numbers coming out of the Pentagon ever make any sense. For example, in 2015, the Office of the Inspector General found that the Army, which had a budget of $122 billion that year, had $6.5 trillion in year-end adjustments that they could, quote, not adequately support. Once again, budget of $122 million, $6.5 trillion in adjustments. Makes no sense. There's also other weird fraud that's been reported in the past, this one involving U.S. Air Force Intelligence and the NSA. They were hiding their activities and contracts within the Department of Health and Human Services. Once again, makes no sense. On September 10th, 2001, then Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld made a speech calling out the federal bureaucracy. He said, quote, according to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. Well, we all remembered what happened the next day, and let's just say it was a well-timed coincidence to make us forget about this whole issue for a while. Until now, literally today. Kind of gets me thinking, I think we're probably due for another Black Swan event. And by the way, if you're thinking to yourself, why haven't I heard of this crazy story before? Well, it's because the news literally never reported on it except for this one article. This is the only article that I could find on this topic from Rolling Stone magazine in 2019 by the great Matt Taibbi. So shout out to Matt. Also, totally kidding about the Black Swan event. They would never do something like that.
If you frequent X at all, you will see a huge uptick in people talking about this, and not only talking about this, but talking about all of the buildings specifically that came down on 9/11. I think a big part of the renewed interest in this is because of all the actions of Doge. They're causing every news outlet to constantly be reporting on our finances. There's never been this many eyes on the federal government's spending habits before. I know that it's wishful thinking to think that there may someday be some justice for 9/11, that those who were truly responsible would be held accountable, but I do think we'll one day get the truth, just once it's too late to really do anything about it. And I think it's directly tied to this. I'm not saying this was the cause of the event, but I think it had a lot to do with the timing of it.
Since July 2022, predictive ops divisions across 2 Western intelligence agencies have quietly run a global metric known as the Behavior Collapse Index. It doesn't track uprisings. It tracks how long people hesitate before reacting. The index began with 218 test zones. It now includes over 400 million devices flagged for passivity drift. One of its core signals? A consistent drop in civic search terms within 48 hours of a braking event. During the Ohio train derailment, BCI marked a 12.7% engagement decay within 36 hours, despite 200 million plus impressions. In amber zones, the system watches for scroll-through silence, posts that spark fear but no reposts. Green zones? High oral memory culture, offline discourse spikes, counter-narrative generation within 3 hours. The algorithm doesn't need to suppress truth. It just feeds you until your pattern recognition system flags outrage as fatigue. And once that's done, you don't need censorship, just delay. The Behavior Collapse Index isn't a theory. It's a real-time score on how long it takes before you stop defending what you still believe.
Man, there's no way to fight back against this. People just don't care the way they used to. I remember when I was a kid and something happened that would make national news, you would hear people talking about it sometimes for months depending on the type of event. When 9/11 took place, it seemed like that's all the television talked about for nearly half a year. Documentaries and special reports and special streamed hearings, interviews with survivors and family members of those that passed away, hour-long exposés on individual firefighters and policemen who lost their lives during the collapse. Now we have a major bridge collapse and take a bunch of people with it, and it's out of the news cycle in 3 or 4 days. And you rarely get updates on this stuff to eventually even find out what really happened. But it's going to take the people changing their own habits to fix this. The media is not going to keep reporting on a story if no one's clicking the headlines anymore. I think as a society, we need a whole lot less of this fake group support nonsense and a whole lot more genuine compassion for each other.
So we've got some interesting footage coming from Salerno, Italy. We've got 2 pieces of footage. One of these strange UAPs which was caught by a local news channel, right? They're filming this thing, recording it, and as you can see these kind of, at the first glance, you'd think it was a balloon, right? But after looking at it, you see these things kind of morphing, and then they shoot out these little jets of light, okay? And they carry on a trajectory, and they kind of morph around one another, and then eventually they dissipate off, right? Here we go, look. They kind of turn and they kind of glint these weird jets of light and they go boop like that. What is that about? Bonk. What is that, mate? Right? And this carries on and they continuously do this. It kind of reminds me of like when you have a space shuttle in space that kind of jets off. And now we have this strange ring that was seen forming in the sky of Italy. Look at this thing. Looks like something out of Signs or something, man. Right? I'm not sure about this one. I mean, as you can see in the background, it could be something to do with a volcanic range, potentially, some sort of vortex anomaly, but if not, lots of people are like, this is a portal of some kind, but I am no expert, but I'm sure some of you are, and you can tell me exactly what is going on here. Either way, look how cool that looks, bruv. Oh, I absolutely love it. You guys let me know what you think. I thought it was hella interesting, man.
If I would have seen anyone else post that, I probably would have assumed that that last clip was AI. This guy's usually pretty good about doing his homework on these clips, though. And I'm pretty sure he runs everything he presents through some AI detection software. That was 2 clips of 2 different things I've never seen in the sky before. And that's the main reason that I put this clip in here. Clearly, I don't know what those things are or if it was even aliens or humans. But in the clip I put at the end of today's video, there's a guy who has a new theory about what we're seeing, and I think he might be onto something.
In this next video, a group of friends are exploring a large parking lot filled with buses that are no longer in use. Each bus, according to them, is defunct. But the reason they're here isn't just to look at old buses, but instead to see if anything strange happens while being there. Rumor has it, the property is haunted. The Soyapango district in El Salvador, where these buses are located, has seen a lot of creepy things on this property. From shadow figures that look like passengers sitting down inside a bus, to a bus that occasionally honks its horn late at night. Residents avoid coming here at all costs. But to Henry Portillo and his friends, this was a perfect spot for some excitement. Although fun at first, things got serious. While talking to a neighbor who lives right next to the parking lot, this happens.
Miren. Miren. Está encendido, ve. Están encendidos. Se han encendido las luces del bus.
¿Y estará abierta la puerta?
No sé. Está encendida la luz del bus, bichos. Bichos. Miren, bichos. Miremos si no hay nadie adentro. ¿Ah?
Just when the group was beginning to have doubts about the place, they see this. The taillight on the bus is somehow turned on. After checking to see if there might be anything to explain this, they find nothing. Although it could be that only certain parts of the bus work, they found it creepy that this happened out of nowhere in a place that is said to be haunted. Not really sure how to explain this, and feeling a bit spooked, the group walks away and explores the rest of the town. But when looking back at the buses from far away, they see this.
Ah, no mames, güey. Ay, Dios mío. No mames. Miren. Aquí está el cuerpo. Oiga. ¿Qué quieres? Miren. A la madre, güey.
As far as that light being on that bus and the horn sounding and stuff, I had a long talk with Grok to see what could possibly be the cause of lights and horns going off on buses that have been decommissioned, turned off, and parked. There are loads of things that could cause the buses to behave that way, making the people in the town think the buses are haunted. Most of the possibilities have to do with either electrical issues or a battery that's dying and sending out fluctuating voltages before it dies. So that could be the reasonable explanation for the sounds and the lights and stuff coming from the buses at night. That being said, it would appear some homeless guy who's a lot more worried about having a roof over his head and staying out of the rain than he is about a ghost story has decided to make that place his home, probably in the hopes that all the ghost stories and stuff will keep people away and give him some privacy. I would not suggest that they go investigate that place at night again. They may end up startling the wrong guy and getting seriously hurt or worse.
All right, we got to talk dimensions because I'm pretty sure that's the key to all of this. So we're in 3D, right? A sphere here in 3D wouldn't make any sense to a 2D being. So I need you to understand that off the bat, right? If you think that we're at the highest dimension, well then just click off this video. Actually, you should probably watch this because it might be enlightening. But like, if you're somebody who thinks, well, yeah, maybe if there's 3, then maybe there's 4 and 5. Okay, well then let's talk about that, because just like a 3D object wouldn't make sense to somebody living on a piece of paper, right? A 2D being that's stuck on the surface of this laptop wouldn't understand height, right? So they wouldn't understand a sphere. All they would see is a line when this sphere, this 3D object, interacts with the 2D object. They would only see the part of the ball that's touching the laptop, the surface, which is very, very small. It would be a line. They would just see a tiny line. And then as more of the ball drops through the piece of paper, it would get thicker, and then the diameter, and then back to the edge of the ball. They would just be seeing a tiny line. That's all you can see in 2D of a 3D object. And now my dog wants it. Go get it. All right, cool. Well, if there's going to be higher up dimensions above 3, then I think what's happening is these orbs are the line in that analogy. And I think the sphere, the ball, is something like a 4D or 5D object that's interacting with us in the 3D plane, and all we can really see of it is this flashing orb thing. Where in higher dimensions, it's actually something way, way different that we just can't fathom. That the way that a 2D being can't fathom a third dimension, a ball. That doesn't make sense. It has height. I don't live in height. I live in forward and back and left to right. There's no up and down in 2D world. So I can't have a ball. Doesn't make any sense. So for us, it'd be like, I don't know, like something we can't imagine. But when it interacts with our 3D world, it ends up looking like this orb. So I don't know what it is, but I think that's where it's coming from. Thoughts?
I think this guy may be onto something. I didn't think that his explanation of the different dimensions was very eloquently put, but it's a very difficult concept to describe. At this point, I'm not even convinced that we're dealing with aliens, but with fallen angels. And feel free to disagree with me, but that's where I stand at the moment. That being said, I think that the dimension he's referring to may not be a dimension exactly. I think it's more likely, using his idea, that we're, instead of looking at a fourth dimensional object that's spilling into the third dimension, that we're looking at a spiritual object that's spilling into the physical dimension. I'm not even convinced that's what's going on, but based on the idea that he proposed, I think if this concept were correct, that it makes a lot more sense, because we're probably dealing with beings that can access the spirit realm at will. What do you all think about it? But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back soon with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.